some clues, and I want you to think about how I'm going to present this. And then I'll go over it, okay? Now I'm going to, if you look at the clocks, there are 4 clocks there on the wall. Right above Caitlin, right? Right above Caitlin, there are 4 clocks on the wall. And I'm going to show you how to use those from kindergarten through 2nd and 3rd grade. Okay? And the end goal is for them to be able to use the one that I have up here on the screen at the end of in 2nd and 3rd grade. Okay, so you can talk to somebody, examine those clocks.
She said 15 is okay, because it's still minutes on both sides, but it's saying like this is what it really means. This is how we represent it. The first one, yeah. And then that was like Thursday. I think we were doing by 5.
Oh, that's 3rd grade.
Yeah.
I just read it.
The 3rd grade was
Yes,
by
that's
5.
2nd grade. No, 2nd grade. Sorry. Tell them right time coming in on graduate class when there's 5 minutes. You need to end.
So then can I go on that one? But I think that would be
First grade would be tell them right time in hours and half hours. Using analog.
or you would do like halfway through.
Because then like they don't have to correlate the color anymore now.
Yeah.
They could just kind of focus on the numbers.
And then 3rd grade is.
Is the one.
The only thing that might confuse them with the colors is that like 11 isn't really by 11, like orange isn't by like exactly orange. Purple's not exactly by purple.
But that's because that's like how you
In response to your thing, Trey, I think he like purposely made the mini M big. You notice how the sizes of the actual fingers are
Right, yeah.
so that way you like they can associate like it doesn't matter how long the short is, like big hand, little hand.
Okay, we ready to talk about this?
Yep.
Okay, now what I just had you do, think about Bloom's, was do an analysis and evaluation. Even though I'm going to tell you as fact how to teach this clock right now. Okay, so when you think about Bloom's, you know, how do I get them to understand these higher levels of Bloom's or use them in a class when a lot of times we're teaching facts, this is one way, let them do an exploration. Okay, so how did you put together these clocks?
What do you mean by put together?
You know, how am I going to use them? How do you think I'm going to tell you how to use them?
Well, I looked at it and I thought, like, we standard talked, like, the first one is, minute hand, you know, so you're doing minutes. And then the middle one, is that a long hand or short hand? I mean,
That's a long.
so that one is minutes regularly, so I mean, if you paired them next to each other, you could say that, like, this is 1, but 1 on that clock is actually 5, so when you're counting minutes, 1 is 5. That's
Okay.
kind of how I got that from it, but then the one at the top, depending on if people are, what kind of learners they are, colors might make sense to them, you know, like, the 1 is actually a chunk of this, all that is actually 5 minutes, so I guess it just
that could be, that isn't the way I'm using it, but that definitely is, of course, it's with everything in math. Yeah, so you have to keep that in mind. Yes?
I think to understand maybe that range, like you would start kindergarten with just like color clock, so that they're getting their hours, like solidly understood, and then if you're trying to teach that like range in between hours, like knowing that 11 goes that entire orange block. So that way when they get to like the regular clock, they understand that, you know, this student here said 9, like they understand that difference between
Okay,
reading the hands, and then also using the different sizes of hands.
Yeah.
So that they can clearly see.
big hand, little hand. Any other ideas? Okay, very good. You got a lot of what I'm going to show you right now. Now, just so you know, this is a program. It's not, if you went into second grade and tried to do what I'm about to tell you, it probably wouldn't work. If you were working with, if you were a second grade teacher, but you wanted to use these ideas here, you would go to the kindergarten teacher and say, okay, you have to begin, these are the clocks we're going to use, you're going to begin here, and then in first grade you're going to do this, and can we all do this so when they come to me in second grade I can do this? So it is very much, you know, that's a 3-year program, okay, or maybe even a little bit longer. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the students do exactly what you did. I'm going to begin with the colorful clock. So if I'm in preschool or kindergarten, I'm beginning with that colorful clock. Okay, so they're going to look at it, and I'm going to say to them, what do you notice about it? Okay, that's what they're going to do, kind of what you did. They're going to analyze it. See, I'm getting at the higher levels. Okay, there's different colors, there's different numbers, there's a little hand there, it looks like, or a glove, whatever they want to say. I'm going to say, well, what do you notice about the numbers and the colors? You know, and hopefully get them to see if they're matching. Okay, all right, and that'd probably be the first thing I would do. I'd probably just have them take a look at that. And then I'd go and I'd be teaching, doing something else. And I'd come back to the clock, or maybe an hour, hour and a half later, I'd say, okay, remember the clock, you know, has anything changed on it? Okay, and let them look, maybe they notice, maybe they don't. Okay, take a real good look at it, oh, you don't notice, okay. So I come back, I'm teaching, doing language arts or something else, come back, and then, has anything changed? I'm trying to get them to see if that hand is moving. See, and this is the way I want you to think about teaching. This is what the Common Core is all about. Getting the students to do the analysis, they start to see a pattern. Oh, that thing is moving. Oh, it did, where was it before? It was over here, now it's here. Okay? All right, then come back again later, that thing has moved again. Okay, so now we know these numbers, we know these colors. Okay, so we're very early in kindergarten. Notice that it's not even a formal lesson in a way. The first one is, you know, take a look at it, what do you notice? That's only going to take about 10 minutes. Okay, then I'm going to integrate time throughout my day and throughout the entire year. I'm going to use it the way, with my students, the way I use it. I use it all day. All of us do. It guides us, okay? So now they kind of get this idea here, and of course they're learning their numbers, so somewhere along the line they're going to know their numbers and how to write, so they're going to be able to read those numbers. And then I'm going to ask them, first thing in the morning, they come in, let's just say it's 8 o'clock. I'm going to say, you know, look at the clock, what do you notice? And they say, okay, the thing's pointing at the 8 blue, it's entering that blue phase, it's probably going to be 8:10, 8:15, whenever they're actually sitting down. Oh, it's in the blue, okay, you know, that's all I'm going to talk about. And then comes lunchtime, so let's say lunch is 12:15. I'm going to say, oh, look at the clock, you know, what do you notice? Because I'm looking at it too, as all this is going on, because it's guiding me, you know, it's a time for lunch, let me take a look. And so as I'm thinking about that clock, I've got to remember to have my students look at it too. See, because that's where the concept comes into play, what it's for, why they should learn it. This is the mistake that a lot of teachers do, is they will take it out of context, which I'm putting it into context right now. They take it and they make it skills based, decontextualize, and they'll say, you know, they'll move this around, they'll say, what time is it? What time is it? You know, and the students have no idea what they're doing. Okay, it's meaningless to them. It's not, if I can make it useful to them, where they see this clock in other places or hopefully at home, and they start saying, oh, I'm starting to understand what that thing is for. but I gotta make it meaningful for them, so I gotta do it in context. Okay, so far so good? All right, so they come in at 8 o'clock, or, 8:15, I have them take a look at it. It's getting close to lunch, it's 12:15, I say, look at the clock, it's almost time for lunch, what do you notice about the clock? Has anything changed on it? Oh, that thing has moved, where was it before? It was in the blue. You see, I'm asking questions, that's what facilitation is, I'm just asking a lot of questions. They're answering, okay? Now the thing has moved, and now it's in the purple, okay, and then we go to lunch, then it's time to leave, and it's, let's say it's 3:30, and again, the thing's now, look at the clock, what do you notice? Oh, that thing has moved again. Okay, where's that hand pointing? It's so now I'm using the word hand, so I'm just bringing these terms along, okay. Then the next day I go through the same thing again. You notice it doesn't take very long, it's not taking a lot of my class time. It's a few minutes here, a few minutes here, a few minutes here. So again, I do the beginning of the day, noon, and then or lunchtime, and then the end of the day. And they're going to start to do this thing. They're exploring right now, and they're going to start to see patterns. They're going to start to see when they come in, oh, that thing was in the blue yesterday when we came in. Is that what you thought? You saw it in the blue? I'm going to write that down, because I'm going to check that out tomorrow. So I'm going to write down the board somewhere. It's in the blue, and then of course, lunch comes around. Hey, that was in the purple yesterday. Oh, okay. Now they're starting to they're starting to associate what the clock is for. Then the next day say, okay, somebody said that. Yeah, that's right. You did say that, Jerry, yesterday. Let me see. Yeah, I did write that down. You said it's in the blue. Yeah, it's in the blue again. All right. So now I can start to get them to use that clock. So now they kind of get an idea. So maybe there's a recess at 10. I can stop, at 10 and say, let's look at recess. Oh, it's in the green for recess. Okay. After a few weeks of doing this, I can start asking them questions. Like, for example, if the clock where it is right now, it's in the orange, I can say, oh, is it time for us to go to lunch yet? How do you know? Okay. And then maybe they don't even think about the clock. Okay. They say, well, you always tell us or something. I say, well, okay, can you figure it out from this? Is this thing saying it's time to go to lunch? What should it look like? Now they're starting to see, no, it's not time to go to lunch. It's in the wrong, where does it have to be? It has to be in the purple. Make sense? Okay, so right there at kindergarten, they're understanding, or preschool, they're understanding how to use this thing. Oh, is it time to go home? Is it time to go to recess? Why? Why do you say that? Eventually they're going to be telling you, yeah, it's time to go to recess because it's in the green or whatever. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, we're also emphasizing the area, which I think Lauren, you had said too, the area. That even though the hand is getting closer and closer to 12, it's in the orange. So far so good? By the way, and the way we should teach math is the way it was actually developed. And the clock, this is the way the clock was developed. In the Middle Ages, when the timepieces first came out, they only had an hour hand. Okay? So it made sense why they would say half past or a quarter past or a quarter till. They're looking at that space and saying it's halfway there. And if you look at it, you can get pretty good at reading the clock from just the hour hand. Because right now it's about in the middle, you say, okay, it's close to 11:30, and it is. Okay, we don't ever think about that because we never looked at it that way. But your students can. So you can also bring in things like this. How far is it going in that orange direction? Is it halfway, yes? Oh, okay, it's halfway. Okay, that's going to come in later, the halfway. If they know quarter at this point, that's debatable. Okay? So the thing is moving. I can also ask them, which way is it moving? And then they're going to say, well, it was here, now it's here, so it's going this, this around this. They'll just point like this. Remember, when you're asking them these questions too, keep this in mind. You don't expect great answers because they aren't able to communicate that well. Okay, but they are thinking. They are going where you want them to be. Is that okay? Okay for opening? All right. Yes.
How do you tastefully tell someone they're wrong? I'm sure you've done it a couple times already.
Well, the first thing, wrong answers are actually great ways. Now, it's hard to get this age group to talk. To actually talk to each other. Like even when they play, like when a kindergartner plays, and they're both playing together, they really are playing separately. Like they're both playing with a dollhouse or whatever, and one's doing they're all doing their own thing. okay? But when you get something like that, when they make a mistake, that's where you throw it open for class, and that's where you try and generate some kind of discussion. Okay, oh, Tony says it's this, you know, and you don't always do it when they're wrong, because if you do, that's a big clue. You know, so what do you think? So now I'm also getting my formative assessment, okay? So what do you think? So maybe, Tony, you read the thing right, and my assumption is the whole class knows it, so by me saying, Tony says it's in the 11, what do you think? And if someone says, no, I think it's in the whatever, now it's like, oh, good thing I asked. Okay, but Tony, if you would be wrong, then I would, again, that's what I want to do. Say, what do you think? Remember we talked about the critique the reasoning of others? Building arguments? Okay, that's what we want to do. We don't expect a lot here, okay? Does that make sense? It is tough, you know, because you don't want to, you know, fire a child down, you know, for working with them and they get something wrong. So, you know, you do have to be kind of thinking like, okay, you try, oh, why do you say that? And I think, Lauren, you had said something like, you know, why do you say that? Why do you think that? A lot of times they can get themselves right out of it when they start thinking about it logically. Okay? So if they make a mistake, then we're going to get into certain things where you're going to have to try and come up with a question, and it's very hard to do that, just so you know. It's very, sometimes you just tell them because you can't think of anything. But then later you think, what could I have done that would have gotten them to figure this thing out, because I'll make you a better teacher. Is that okay? Okay with that, Tom?
Yeah.
Not exactly what you
No,
wanted, but.
no, because I think sometimes when you're, you know, pressed for time or something, you're just like, okay, no, that's not right. And then you go, and so and then later on you can't take that back, and then they don't want to answer questions anymore for that because like they were wrong before. Or I even feel like even in this class as grown-ups, we're all like, I don't want to answer it first because I might be wrong.
Yeah.
So I will always be wrong and not care, guys. I'll answer it for you. But just even like the video that I was doing today for my son with those blocks, I should have done it earlier. We had a crazy weekend, and I was like, come on, we gotta go. You know, hurry up, let's do this. And I thought he would do it quicker than he did. And he was sitting there, and I feel like I didn't give him enough time to think before I said, maybe you should put them in 2 piles.
Yeah.
And so you'll hear on the video that I gave it away. And so sometimes it's like, all right, well, from what you're telling us that we shouldn't tell them. How long do you give them to struggle before you're like, let me help you so that you can move on to the next thing with us?
Well, you don't want them, once you see that they're out of options, say, okay, we're gonna try it later. And that gives you a chance to go back and think, okay, what can I do? How can I pose this question? What, maybe I have to use a different manipulative, do something different, maybe with candy, for example, they're gonna share it between 2 people, if it was divided by 2, you know, if that's what your son was trying to do. Okay, you and me are gonna share this, but see, that's me coming up with the idea later. Just so you know, this way of teaching, it is not easy. Okay, and so there might be times you do exactly what you did. You say, okay, we might just want to do this, and that's okay because we also are under time constraints. We only have so much time to teach math. Okay. So I don't know if I completely answered your question, but that's kind of what you've got to do. Okay, so we've got the students, they've analyzed it, they're in preschool and kindergarten. And now I'm going to say, you know, like for example, when it was halfway through 11, I'm going to bring in the bottom left clock. And I'm going to say, and now analyze it. What do you notice about it? How is it the same as the other clock? How is it different? Okay, let them kind of look at that. You know, the hand is bigger. There's no colors on it. They've got bigger numbers on it, and so on. Okay. And now at this point, maybe like when it was at 11 o'clock, I would have them look at both clocks. I'd say, okay, and so they know how to read the colorful clock now. You know, they know, okay, it's in the 11. Okay, look at our new clock. What does that say? And it's pointing at 0 at 11 o'clock, right? Say, oh, okay. And then when the orange, when it gets halfway through, and I've already said, you know, okay, we're halfway through. What do you notice about the other one? Oh, that one's really moved a lot. Oh, it has? How far is it? It's pointing at the 30. Okay, so you know, you kind of do the same thing. You're just popping in and out of the clock as you're teaching other things. Yes?
So ideally, is the goal to have it set up like this in your classroom by the end of the thing, or do you like just do like, so you'll start with the colorful clock, then you leave that up and add a new clock?
Yeah, at
And
least
then
right
leave that
now.
up and then add a new clock.
Yeah.
And then once they're confident,
Yeah, and you're gonna see that with the transition, yeah, exactly, that's what we're going to do, okay? All right, so now we've got it, now I can start to talk about, after a few days of this, again, pop it in and out, you see how quickly, there's no big time lesson here, okay? And then I'm gonna say, okay, let's write that, so it's 11 and it's 30, so that's how I'm gonna write that, 11 and 30, and I'm gonna put the colon in there, okay, that's what that means, so 11 is, the colorful clock, and the 30 is the other one. Okay, so now I can start bringing in more times. So when it comes recess, if recess is at 10:15 or lunch is at 12:15, I can say, okay, what does the clock say and what time is it? Okay, and which one? And now they're used to doing the hours first, so you have a better chance of them saying, okay, it's 12 and then the other one's 15. If they mix them up, just say, okay, we usually say the colorful one first. Okay, so now they're able to write it. Are we okay so far? They're starting to get the idea. Also, they'll notice that the hand is bigger and it's moving faster too. That should come up at some point. Okay, so the one's barely moving, the one's moving very fast. Okay, so here we are in kindergarten, or maybe even the beginning of first grade. And it's not important that you know what grade levels these are at. Okay, I'm just saying that to kind of give you an idea. All schools are different. Okay, so now we're going to transition into sort of like a first grade, a little bit more complex. So I've got the top clock, the left clock, and now I'm going to introduce the center clock. And I'm not taking away the other two clocks. I'm going to say, what do you notice is the same, what's different, and so on, and then they're going to notice that clock there is, the hand is always moving with the other hand, with the minute hand. Say, okay, well, what does the minute hand say? It says, right now, 35. How would you have figured it out with this one? See, now I'm going to let them start thinking about this. This is all good higher level thinking. How can I make that one be 35? Maybe I wouldn't start with 35. Maybe I'd start with 5 or 10, something like that. And they start to see that, okay, those are units of 5. Okay, so if I don't have that left clock and I just have the center clock, I might be able to start reading it. Okay, so I'm going to let all three clocks, they're using it. I'm going to challenge them, use that middle clock. Then at some point, I'm going to kind of cover up that left clock. I'll say, it's a new day. I'll say, okay, see if you can figure out what's under this cover, what that thing's saying. Okay, so what time is it? Okay, and they say, well, the thing's 11. I say, oh, good, we know that one well. Okay, what do you think? I think it's, and again, here's where they can make a mistake. They can say, well, right now, we're just going to use the exact time here, 11:25, or they might say 11:07. And I say, okay, why do you think it's 11:07? Okay, because point said, okay, anybody have something different, a different idea? See, that's what I'm hoping someone's going to come up and say 35 or 30 or something. Even if they're wrong, they say 25, at least I know that they're on the right track. Why do you say that? Why do you think this person said 7? Okay, why do you think they said this? Which one do we think is right? I'm getting ready to pull this thing up. Let's see who's right. We open it, oh, it's 35 or whatever it is. Okay, so what was the thing that, again, you see, I'm just asking questions. That would facilitate it. Because if I can get them, those higher level things that they're doing in their mind, that's how they really learn. It's not me saying, remember to do this. Because anytime I say, remember to do this, that's always harder. It's always hard to remember, how did they tell me to do this, rather than me figure, if I can figure it out, it's in there. And I can figure it out again later. Okay so far? So now we got all three clocks again the next day, or maybe I cover it again and it gets close to lunch. I say, what do you think? What do you think our time is now? Go through the same thing, and I lift that thing up. And when they get really good at that center clock, I don't need the left clock anymore. So now I got these two clocks going on. Okay. Now the third thing is that somewhere in first grade or second grade, I want to get to that right clock, so I'm going to introduce the right clock. I'm going to say, what do you notice again? How's it the same as these clocks? How's it different? And they're going to say, it has that little hand just like the other one. It's got the, like that. I say, okay, how can I use that in place of those two clocks? Okay, I'm going to let them try and figure it out. Okay, then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to cover those two clocks up. And with the new clock, I'm going to say, what time do you think it is? And then they're going to make their guess and say, why do you think that is? And then I'll lift those things up. Oh, okay. And if they make a mistake, why? What do you think you did a mistake? What was wrong? Now it's for them to look at it and say, oh, I got the hands mixed up. I forgot. Yeah, that's right. It's the little hand. See, they're telling me, which means they know it. If I tell them, they can repeat it back to me, but they don't necessarily know it. okay? Then I'm gonna do the same thing, cover it and keep going back and forth. And again, this is higher levels of blooms, okay? They're evaluating, okay? They're looking at all three clots and they're saying, how's this the same, how's it different, okay? And now I've got them there, now the last step is just taking the hands off. And again, doing the same thing, how can I do it with this? How can I do it with this traditional clock versus that? I wouldn't have a second hand on it, by the way. Okay.
You
so
would
any-
not?
No, I probably wouldn't do that. I mean, maybe in third grade or something, I would start with something with a second hand, but initially I wouldn't. If they're able to start reading this without the second hand, then I could put the second hand on. In other words, they've been reading it for a month correctly, I'm gonna say, what do you think that's doing? Well, that one's moving really fast. Okay, let's count. 1, 2, 3, that's called a second. That's our second hand. You know, so you introduce it that way. Okay? Are we okay with this? All right, now, I gave you a lot of information, and this will be on your Blackboard page. We're gonna have it on by today. Well, I'll be right with you. This video basically tells you what I just said. Okay, that's what, 15 minutes, so you know, it's not the greatest thing to sit through again, but if you want to know, this is what I'd be looking for on a test. This information. Now, I know you've got it. It's hard to translate it into words. That's always a tough thing for my students with the test. Yes?
So then, when you're using this method, you're just getting them to confidently tell time using what you have here. They don't necessarily know like the 60 minutes, or do
Oh.
you introduce that, like as you go?
As you're going, yeah,
Okay.
because now, when you, especially that left clock, when you introduce that, then, you know, as they start to look at it, you can say, well, how many going around, how high does this thing go?
Mhm.
All right. Okay, any other questions? All right, so, and here. Now, when we're doing this is all in context, and we're trying to get the students to really understand it. They were doing a lot of abstract reasoning when I say compare this with this. You know, that's all in their head. They're looking, they're evaluating, they're using blooms. We're doing it in context because I'm saying, okay, you know, it's the beginning of the day, it's the end of the day, and so on, and they're developing meaning for that thing, for that device, okay? Once you get to certain points, you can do, as it shows here, from the contextualize, you can go through the decontextualize. I mean, you definitely, this does not go away. It just doesn't come first. It comes last. These are the word problems, or I shouldn't say the word problems, these are the word problems here. Word problems come first in our class. But practicing over and over comes last. So this idea of practicing, saying what time is it, they're ready for it now. What time is it? You know, I'm moving this thing, what time is it? All decontextualized. Okay? That's okay. Let's see. Got, clock is sitting here. Go to noon. Oh, what's it say? It goes to 11:50. Let's see. It's the noon. Okay. Let's try this.
Boy, it's so close to lunch too. I did not know you were serving us food.
Well, actually, this isn't food. I usually bring in stuff. We just haven't had any need for food yet. We're gonna make a paper plate clock. Welcome. 6. Okay, I'm gonna get some more of these. What I want you to do is there's some crayons in those blue boxes back there. Be careful with that, by the way, because I'm recording this, although I guess I can stop recording this now.